Hello and welcome to the show. When it comes to road-going cars, the hypercars are at the very top of the tree. They are the apex predators of the road, if you like, and there are a fair few of them out there, all unbelievably fast, ridiculously rare, incredibly expensive, and with stats that will boggle the mind. Let's face it, if you are playing a game of Top Trumps, these are the sort of cars that you very much want to have in your hand. Take this Zenvo, for example. Turbos were not enough for this. No, the engine in this is twin-charged, so not only has it got turbos, it's also got a supercharger, meaning it makes over 1,000 horsepower. That is an awful lot of power in a fairly unsophisticated car. I mean, the Zenvo is most well known for slightly setting fire to itself and looking like a little bit of an angry fish. However, it's a mad car, statistically speaking. Most of them will do well over 200, if not over sort of 230, 240 miles an hour. 0 to 60s come and go in 3, often less seconds. They are incredible pieces of engineering. And while often most people just think of the generic 3, the LaFerrari, the Mclaren P1 and the Porsche 918, there are plenty more out there to challenge those vehicles. So that is what we are going to do. Unfortunately, in Forza 7, we are limited by what cars I have in the game. I'd love to have the new Zenvo with its wibbly-wobbly movie around rear wing. Be fantastic fun. We don't have that. I want that in a game, full stop. But using the cars that we had, I set out on a series of challenges to see which one would come out on top. We start with Motorsport, with a nice, straightforward-ish race. It would be a 4-lap race around Silverstone with the cars organised in reverse PI. So the theoretically slowest cars would start at the front, a 1-second roll-off delay between the vehicles. Now that meant the cars like the Koenigsegg 1, the Ultima Evo, had a lot of vehicles to try and overtake and a fairly sizable, about 15-14 second time gap for those cars to try and make up, but they are very quick. The GTA Spano already flapping around its rear air brake. It's still a funny sight. I've seen the car many times. It's still a funny sight seeing it when it's going around a racetrack. The Porsche, the 918, is sort of a mid-tier PI car, and you'll have a little bit of a lull period early on. The Porsche, quick around the corners, quick enough to keep up with the Spano when it came to the corners, although it did get dropped a little bit whenever we got out of the turns. You can already see the Veyron SS, well, that was dropping back. The McLaren P1, and I think it was the LaFerrari, actually, in the background, making progress forwards. I was going to be driving the Chiron, the quite boaty Chiron. And the downside for the poor Bugatti is it has fairly high PI. In fact, there are only 4 cars, with higher PI, one of them being the Ultima, which made short work. It didn't take long for the Ultima to find its way past the Chiron. It is. The Ultima is unbelievably fast, and well, the Bugatti was in for a tough time. The Regera was up next. I had some understeery troubles around the old turn 1, and the Regera would find its way past. Even if I hadn't, the Regera would have got past pretty damn quickly. It's better through the corners and faster when it comes to the straights. The Koenigsegg, that was up next, and while I try my best just to be neat and tidy through maggots and Beckett's, all of the power of the Chiron is no good when up against that one. And in fact, it has a huge dive on the Veyron as well. Gets the pass start. I say a huge dive. It's a perfectly safe dive. It was from a long way back, but the brakes on the Koenigsegg are so very good that it made sure. The Bugattis were in trouble. Early on. At the front, Zonda unfortunately would disconnect and end up DNFing out of it, which would give the Zenvo a lead for a lap, and it would hold that lead just for the first lap. The Lycan was now going to take that lead. A great pass, actually, from the Lycan around the outside of turn 3 to the inside at turn 4. The Zenvo is a little bit of a dinosaur. It's quite a lot of a dinosaur. It's got a lot of understeer. It is quite quick down the straights, but very heavy and not very easy to get through the corners. The Lycan, pretty agile, made short work of getting past the Zenvo. The battle of the bad would commence at the back, and the Huayra would get a little bit unlucky. The Huayra, fairly high PI as well, doesn't have the all-wheel drive advantages, the launch out of the corners that the Bugattis get, or quite the same sort of straight-line speed as the Ultima, as the Regera, as the Koenigsegg, which means the Huayra couldn't get past the Bugattis on acceleration or down a straight, which means it had to do it in the corners. And while it was far better than the Bugatti through the corners, I was busy trying to find a way past the Veyron, and we both essentially blocked the Huayra for a good couple of laps. It just couldn't find a way past. Every time we got to a straight, we'd run away. Every time we got to a corner, it'd close up massively, but it could never dive bomb or never try and dive past me, because if it did, it would have ended up in the side of the Veyron, or I was fighting with the Veyron and looking for a way past, and we were too wide in places. So the Huayra was having trouble. I mean, he was trying to get creative, but just couldn't get a move. So even there, with a big mistake on the way into Magnussen Beckett, immediately Huayra's caught back up. It's immediately on the tail. There's nowhere to go as we head on to the back straight. And the Veyron was doing a pretty good job of holding the Chiron at bay. In terms of straight line speed, while the Chiron is more powerful, the Veyron SS is lighter. And, well, through much of the course, the Veyron could certainly give my Chiron a lot of issues. Well, the Ultima, that continued to well, pretty damn impressively work its way through the field. Veneno, always likely to struggle in terms of straight line speed. Great through the corners, but does not have the straight line speed to keep up. It easily breezes its way past the Spano. I think the Spano and the LaFerrari got a little bit connected. Further back, they would get going once more. Now it was the turn of the Zenvo to be in trouble. The Hennessy Venom had made its way past the Zenvo with its mad straight line speed. The Ultima's trying to go around the outside. Magnussen Beckett is not quite going to make that one stick, but it really is a case of it's a matter of time for the Ultima. Tries to go around the outside of the Zenvo, realises it's a closing door, lifts, gets back on the throttle, and still outdrags the Zenvo. That is how much straight line speed there is in that car. Hennessy Venom, no problem. Just absolutely no problem. We'll get it stopped. And the Koenigsegg one is doing exactly the same thing behind it. Corner after corner, these cars were picking their way up through the field. The Lycan, in fact, you can see the Koenigsegg to the inside of the Venom to make its way up into a third place. The Lycan was doing well, and the Lycan does do very well with fairly low PI in all of this, but it's never going to be a match for the Ultima. It's mad how quick the Ultima is. It's just ridiculous. This Ultima is going up against some seriously quick cars, and it makes them look like they are standing still in some of their acceleration, as does the Koenigsegg as well. They're both unbelievably fast vehicles. The LaFerrari was gradually making its way up through the order, coming up against the Hennessy Venom. That would be a pass for a fourth place. The Ferrari would then be off chasing after that Lycan. The Battle of the Badge, well, that would continue in all of its interest. We were having a really good fun race back here. It was over last place. The Huayra did eventually manage to find a way past in all of this as I continued to hunt for a way past that Veyron. I was kind of surprised, I'll be honest. I was kind of surprised. I expected the Chiron to have an easier time. The Huayra then tries to get a move on the Zenvo, just gets it a little bit wrong into Magnussen Beckett, and all of his hard work would then get undone, and now it would be, well, back to irritated poor Pagani, while the Battle of the Bad would now become more of a three-way battle and one very fast car stuck in the middle of everything, because the Zenvo was having a tough time. The Zenvo just does not have the grip through the turns. It does have a decent amount of power, and it could keep the Bugattis honest down that straight. It really could keep us honest down the straight, but it doesn't have a huge amount of straight lines. Well, it doesn't have a huge amount of quarter grip, sorry. It doesn't have the huge traction that the all-wheel drive Bugattis do. They're going to make life difficult for us. The Veyron trying to go round the outside of one corner to the inside of the next. It was my turn, though, to go for the cutback. I mean, this doesn't really help us in terms of lap time, but it was very good fun. And I eventually get the move done on the Veyron as the Zenvo would have a little bit of a breather. The Huayra was busy trying to work his way back through the field. The P1, unfortunately, the P1 and the Regera would get a little bit squished and sort of lose a small bit of time in all of this. It would, as the race progressed, as you would imagine, kind of spread out and sort itself out into these, to these little bit more spread out battles. P1 and Regera, that's what can happen when it comes to racing. A lot of cars trying to fit in small pieces of tarmac. At the front, nothing had an answer for the Ultimate. The Koenigsegg is a very quick car, but even that around here doesn't have an answer for the Ultimate. The Ultimate's acceleration is just ridiculous, the speed it can do, and while sure you can have very fast cars, it's still controllable through the corners. It might not be quite as nice to drive as the Koenigsegg. It's easy to extract performance out of the Ultimate, but when you get it right, it is ridiculous. It is absolutely Absolutely ridiculous. So, yeah, the Ultimate would win, the Koenigsegg in second. The LaFerrari would take third. Fourth place would go down to the wire between the Lycan and the Hennessy Venom, while the likes of the P1, the GTA Spano, and all of those cars had been stuck fighting for a fair amount of the mid-pack. The Lycan had managed to stay out in front, or out in clean air, or cleanish air for most of the time. The Venom, perhaps a fractionally faster car, but ran out of opportunities to try and find a way past. I mean, it had caught up to the back of the Lycan, couldn't get a move done on the final lap. The Lycan would take fourth, the Hennessy in fifth, ahead of the McLaren P1 in sixth. The Battle of the Bad, well, that would also go down to the wire. It was my turn to run. Having got past the Zenvo finally, I then ran too deep into Maggers and Beckett's trying to fend it off, and, well, that cost me the position. It wasn't completely over and done with just yet, though. There were still a few more corners to go. The wire finally cleared all of us and buggered off up the road with a tiny bit of clean air. I got past the Zenvo down the straight, but I'm stuck on the outside for this next corner, and, well, the Zenvo doesn't have much grip, but the Chiron isn't exactly great through the corners either. The Zenvo with a big wobble across the artificial grass. I'm trying to have to go around the outside. I'm hoping to get to the inside for that final corner. Can't quite make it stick, though, through all of that. And the Veyron is not too far behind whatsoever. We head through the final corner. I keep my foot down, get a lot of speed. It isn't going to be enough, though. The Zenvo would hold on to the position. It was over 12th, 13th, and 14th, all of that. But we had a lot of fun. We had an awful lot of fun. So, having done the race, of course, many things can happen during a race. As we saw, the Huayra got stuck in traffic, and other vehicles can get stuck in traffic, slowed down by battles and whatnot. So we move on to the next round, the hot lap competition, if you like. And of course, different circuits are going to favour different cars. Now, our hot lapping track of choice on Forza 7 that I've done for various hot lap stuff in the past has been the Yas Marina South Circuit. Vastly different to the demands of Silverstone, and it's done from a standing start, which means cars like the Chiron, like the Veneno, like the Porsche 918, for example, that all-wheel drive initial launch off the line can be pretty handy. It's also made up of a lot of slow corners around here. While yes, there is that very fast sort of double apexed corner, and you know there's a bit of an acceleration zone when you get out of this final turn as McLaren is heading around here. You know, this is your acceleration zone. There's a lot of slow corners, which is a different challenge for these sorts of cars. Again, it was likely to be the similar protagonists up at the very top. The Koenigsegg with all of its mad amount of downforce, mad amount of grip, the Ultimate with its crazy amount of acceleration. Another thing that the cars do have to be wary of at this particular circuit, the curbs are bumpy. The curbs are very mean around here. They will launch the cars up onto two wheels. While on this particular lap, I didn't quite go as wide across them. There are little gutters that some of the cars, if they are, I say, badly set up, but if it doesn't suit the track, you can get in trouble. You can get in trouble with cars across the curbs. Now, in all of this, none of the vehicles were massively awful on the curbs, which is helpful. It was just something you had to be aware of. If you clobbered the curbs through sort of turn 1, turn 2 area, you could get most cars to bounce around up onto two wheels. So, yeah, there's a lot of different challenges around this circuit to Silverstone. The Koenigsegg, I have to say, it's remarkable the ease at which it is to drive the way. For a 1,300, 400 horsepower car, it's incredibly easy to use a lot of that power. I'm pretty sure magic went into making this car, but you can also be an utter lout with it if you so wish. But if you do want to drive it sensibly, it's absolutely remarkable, and it would be the Koenigsegg that would go fastest of the lot, a 102.6, probably the fastest car I've ever had around here. Cars and orange vehicles, of course, in this showdown. Other cars that have got around the circuits in blue. It would be 0.4 of a second faster than the Ultima, and I think that is because at the low-speed corners, the Ultima, sometimes it's difficult to get traction in that car. There's so much power and so little weight, it wants to spin the wheels a lot, so yeah, I'm not so surprised by that result. The Pagani Huayra would be the third fastest car, and the Veneno sets a stunning time to go fourth. That's that all-wheel drive launch, and the Veneno is lovely to drive. It lacks straight-line speed in the grand scheme of things, perhaps here, but it is a great car to drive. All-wheel drive launch, all-wheel drive traction out of the slow corners, very, very good going. The Hennessy Venom would go just a fraction down on that Veneno. I mean, that's all power. It struggles on traction, but it's got the power for the straight. The GTA Spano right in that group as well. I mean, all three separate by less than a tenth of a second. The Koenigsegg Regera, strange car to drive, that one, but pretty damn fast when you get things right. We do have to go a little bit further down to find the rest of the vehicles. The LaFerrari would go with a 104.9, fractionally beating the Veyron SS, that beats the Mclaren P1, that beats the Bugatti Chiron, but again, we're only talking a tenth and a bit between all of those cars. In fact, the Porsche 918 is in there as well. There's like a tenth separating the LaFerrari down to the Porsche 918. Go a little bit further back to find the Zenvo, the Lycan, not such a fan, around the Yas Marina circuit, and the Zonda C. Again, it's not that far off. It's only half a second off the Chiron. It's perhaps a teeny tiny little bit outclassed in this particular field. It does get beaten by my fictional, made-up sort of 488 challenge. Yeah, lap time's pretty damn close. I mean, if we ignore the, well, like I said, the Koenigsegg and the Ultima kind of in their own little fight, the rest of the cars, lap time-wise, pretty damn close. The all-wheel drive cars, of course, helped a bit around that circuit because of the nature of the Yas Marina track. So, racing done, hot lapping done, it was time for a drag race. And, well, it's a pretty large number of cars on a fairly narrow bit of, well, airstrip. Top Gear is the only place we can save a replay. So it's a little bit sketchy. The Zenvo very much in the mid-pack, the Regera with a terrible start, but goes absolutely flying off towards the front. Now there is, you might just about see it, you very quickly flash past it, a Formula E car that's marking the finish line. From on board the Chiron, of course, the all-wheel drive cars are going to have that advantage off the line. The Veneno gets a fantastic start, just doesn't have the power to go with the two Bugattis. The 918 is further across on the, well, sort of right-hand side of the screen as you look at it now. The Ultima, though, once it's got going, it absolutely flies. The problem is, it takes so long to get going, and it's a very similar story in the Venom, a very similar story in the One. Both cars very quick and technically faster than the Bugattis on a longer run, but they just cannot get the power down. The Regera also unbelievably fast in terms of top speed, but it can't get off the line. And in a drag race like this, well, it really shows. I mean, the Regera really struggles off the line. You can see the One spinning the wheels. You can see the Venom's not done very much. Then you can see the Venom kick in. The Regera goes past everything like that, standing still. Goodbye to the Porsche. It goes shooting off down the strip, but yeah, it's too little, too late in all of this. I always love this camera angle when doing the showdowns. This is the results. It would be the Veyron that would take a victory here. The Ultima in second place. The Chiron gets third. It's very close between the Chiron and the Veyron. I had a slightly worse launch than the Veyron, and that's the difference in all of that. The Koenigsegg 1 would get the next, then beats the Hennessy Venom, but only just the Regera catching fast by the end, but not quite quick enough. It's very close between the next group of three. The 918 is beating the Spano that beats the P1, but we're only talking fractions in all of that. The 918's launch is what does it at the end of the day for them. The Zenvo would come across next. It's very, very close between the next group of cars as well. The Lycan beats the Huayra, although you can't see it. I did move around with the photo mode, and the Pagani just beats the LaFerrari. Then the Veneno has all the launch, but none of the top end, and the Zonda a little bit further back. Not so far away, but a little bit further back. And now at full speed. It looks pretty mad. It looks pretty mad from that viewpoint. The final of our little test. 0 to 100 to 0. So this tests acceleration, traction, and also your braking. I would go fast with the Chiron. It also tests our, well, ability, or showcases our inability to keep our cars in the straight line. You see, of course, most of us have got very, very high-powered cars that will wander a little bit, and we're all busy looking at the speedo trying to find the right point to brake, not noticing how much our cars are wandering. And when there's just enough space for all of us on this runway. It's a little bit sketchy. It's a little bit sketchy at best. This was our kind of best run for all of us. The Chiron, it's not a bad, considering how close I was pretty happy with how I ended up with the 1-1. How light that car is compared to a £4,300 Chiron. I'm fairly pleased with how the Bugatti fared, because I have got the all-wheel drive launch. The Ultima had all sorts of wheel spin trouble trying to get. You see how much it's wobbled and wiggled its way out of its lane, if you like, quite a long way for the Ultima. Our next vehicle, the Regera, got a lot of speed but can't get off the line. Actually, that's pretty well. Considering the struggles that car has to get going, it does pretty well to have got to 100. Also doesn't have to worry about gear shifts, though. That might help it in this sort of test. The Huayra BC, I guess a fantastic run. Stops just past the Ultima, but it beats the Koenigsegg, which not something that I was expecting, I'm going to be honest. In all of that, the Zenvo was not likely to do so well in all of this. It's not exactly sophisticated, it's also very heavy. Put those two together, and this isn't the challenge that the Zenvo is going to enjoy, particularly. The LaFerrari, there's also a little bit of replay lag, so ignore wheel spins and weirdness. The LaFerrari, either way, didn't have a great time of slowing down. The GTA Spano also not having the best of times in this one as it goes shooting off into the... I say shooting off into the distance, you know, this is not the biggest spread we've ever seen when doing one of these tests. The Mclaren P1 gets a pretty tidy run. Not enough to beat the Huayra, but it is enough to beat both the Regera and my Chiron. The Veyron has an absolutely fantastic run in that. So yeah, fractionally lighter than the Chiron, perhaps a little bit better launch, and the car gets stopped very, very neatly. The Venom, I mean, while it's still fairly light, that wheel spin, trying to get the Venom going is the difficult part, and that's the case with a lot of the high-powered rear-wheel drive cars. The Lycans on the brakes, not quite as good at getting slowed down as some of the other cars. The Lycan's quite a soft car. You can see quite a lot of body roll going on with the Hypersport. And the Porsche 918, the final car to run, the all-wheel drive launch is good. Doesn't quite have the speed of some of the other vehicles, but braking performance, you know, it's kind of roughly there in the middle. On to our little camera flyby. The Ultima, clearly the winner in all of this, although not by quite as much as you might have expected. Well, the likes of the Bugattis, I have no doubt, got to 100 mile an hour quicker than the Ultima. The Ultima, very, very good at getting slowed down. The Huayra does a fantastic job to get into second place. The Veyron also got a fantastic launch and spot-on braking to get that stopped in time, just beating out, and it is very close between that and the one. McLaren P1, also a good run for the vehicle, beats my Chiron, which in turn manages to narrowly beat the Regera. Porsche 918, just a fraction further down the road than that Koenigsegg. The Hennessy Venom, it is a very, very quick car once it gets going, but getting that car off the line, like with the Regera, really, very tough getting those cars going, but once they have got going, they are pretty impressive. The Lycan just by a nose ahead of the LaFerrari. The Veneno, very good off the line, but of course doesn't have the power, still getting stopped right in the middle of the pack. The Zonda, yeah, it does struggle a little bit more, but still not too bad. The Spano, a little further down the road. Also, there's a Flying Cone beats the Spano. I don't quite know who to award points to in all of that, but well done, Flying Cone, for your impressive stopping performance. Well, it was kind of in flight. Who knows where that ended up? And then we have a long walk. A long walk to find the Zenvo. I think the gap between the Zenvo and the pack is as big as the gap from the winner and loser from the main pack. It was a long way down the road. It didn't have a great time. Not a good test for the Zenvo. Anyway, we move on to the overall results. Now, I used a V8 Supercar scoring system to calculate the results based on the finishing positions in each of the challenges. And the winner would be the Ultima Evo, just beating out the Koenigsegg 1. They were really the main two protagonists in this for the first positions. The most surprising result, and in some ways the most impressive result, the Bugatti Veyron comes home in third place, ahead of the Hennessy Venom. The Pagani Huayra, despite being stuck in traffic for that Silverstone race, would get fifth. I have a sneaky suspicion if the Huayra hadn't been snared in traffic for almost an entire race, that may well have got third. That is how motorsport goes sometimes. The Regera comes home in sixth, ahead of the McLaren P1. My Chiron would come eighth, amazingly beating the LaFerrari. The GTA Spano in 10th, ahead of the Lycan Hyper, so actually ties with the Porsche in terms of points, although I gave it to the Lycan by virtue of having the highest finishing position in an event. The Lamborghini Veneno only a point down on those two. It's a good showing. The Veneno, mighty fast when it comes to a technical circuit. We saw what it could do at Yaz. In this field, though, it lacks the straight line speed. The Zenvo is a little bit down off the points table. It did struggle. It's big, it's heavy, and not very sophisticated. Likewise, the Pagani Zonda, it's just a tiny bit outclassed. It's just a tiny bit outclassed when it comes to this sort of a field. I mean, it was very, very close with the with the mid-pack, if you like. The top two were always going to be the top two, the Ultima and the One, but from sort of 3rd to 10th, it's very close. Again, with the Lycan and the Porsche and so on as well. It's a very, very close showdown, cars having their strengths, vehicles having their weaknesses. But yeah, as far as victors go, the Ultima is very much the ultimate hypercar. It's just so damn fast. It's really its acceleration is what the Ultima has over everyone. You saw on that drag race, it was difficult getting off the line, yes, but once it got going, it absolutely flew up to the back of the Bugattis. It would have won had we had a longer drag strip, I have no doubt. It's so damn fast accelerating. It out-accelerates the Koenigsegg. I mean, the 1-1 is probably the nicer car to drive. The 1-1 is much easier to extract performance, and we saw when you get to a really technical circuit, the Koenigsegg is probably a little bit faster, simply because it can manage its admittedly ludicrous 1,300 horsepower better than the Ultima. You don't get as much wheel spin. It's better through the sort of slower corners. The Ultima, though, just has that stupid acceleration. It's mad acceleration that will, take it to the top of the table. The real big surprise in all of that is the Veyron. I did not expect to see the Veyron coming home in a 3rd place. We were battling for last, or trying not to be last, at Silverstone. The Veyron ended up last at Silverstone, yet it can come 3rd overall. That's the straight line speed of the car when we do a challenge in this manner. The Veyron did well in the 0 to 100 to 0 test. It's that all-wheel drive launch. Now, we have done this sort of showdown in the past, and I think perhaps why we see the Veyron performing a little bit higher in the overall table in this particular competition. There are more cars in. I think this is the biggest showdown we have done. So the Veyron winning in the drag race, and the Chiron also did better than I expected, sort of overall points-wise, because they were so fast when it came to the drag race, getting the very, very high points. There were now more cars between them, and perhaps LaFerrari, for example. They both beat the LaFerrari in the end, because there were more. It helps them because there were more cars. The Zenvo outran the LaFerrari. The Lycan went better than LaFerrari, and the Spano, and so on and so forth. So I think that's perhaps a little bit where the Veyron sort of stuff comes in. We all know the Veyron at the end of the day is the Bugattis are about being able to go incredibly fast in a straight line while in amazing amounts of comfort. Not so much about the ultimate lap time. And they still set half decent times when it came to Yas because of that all-wheel drive launch. They weren't very nice to drive, I will say. I did not particularly like the Chiron. I didn't particularly like my Chiron, but there we go. As far as my favourite of the hypercars, I mean, to drive, the Koenigsegg still wins it for me. I know the Ultima is technically quicker over a lot of circuits. The Koenigsegg is just a nicer car to drive. The Veneno is also definitely worth a mention. The Veneno is definitely worth a mention. It doesn't have the power, really, of the competition, but it is mighty good through the technical stuff. However, I can't help but love the Zenvo. I can see the points. I know what points it got. I know it's not particularly good. And yet there's something about the Zenvo that I really, really, really like. It might just be me, but I very, very much like the Zenvo in all of its weird silliness, and it might not be a particularly easy car to drive. It's far too heavy, far too crazy, but I just can't help but really quite like it. So, yeah. Your Ultima is the winner, the Koenigsegg's the easiest to drive, silly, silly fast, and I want a terrible Zenvo. There's some sort of conclusion in all that. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.